What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes always deliver the big names. Today we got not just a big name. This guy's a legend, man. You should see the list of things he's accomplished in the sport from the late 90s all the way to 2016. And yet again, we get to talk about Dan Henderson because he's got a book coming out. Hendo, the American, it's out, I should say. Hendo, the American Athlete. And you can grab it at Amazon. I mean, there's a few places you can grab it, right? You can do it via Kindle, audiobook. I think Amazon seems to be what most of the world works through. $19.99 will get you this riveting memoir by the first MMA double champion and two-time Olympic wrestler. What's up, Hendo? How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. Thank you for the time today. And very interesting. You know, I wanted to know the book. Was it something you had always wanted, or did someone put it in your ear that you should do it?
I don't know. It's something that I've thought about doing for a while, and I kind of was looking around for a co-author, but not too actively, and then just kind of ended up doing kind of a different project, a documentary type stuff for something else, and I wanted to write a book about my life with me, so we partnered up and did that.
What's been the feedback so far? And I guess I'm even more curious from the MMA community. I'm sure your family and friends have loved it, but anybody from the MMA community specifically reach out or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who all's read it or who hasn't read it. Tim Kennedy said he loved it. It was an awesome book, and I think a lot of other people not in the MMA community loved it as well. So I mean, it's pretty. I don't know. I guess a lot of people use the word inspiring to describe it.
Did they share with you what they liked about it? Was there any common themes?
Yeah, like I said, just kind of being inspirational and working hard and trying to achieve something and making it happen, over time without quitting and just all those sacrifices. It just kind of shows you kind of the way in order to achieve certain things in life. Just you're gonna have to make some sacrifices and work real hard to get it. And I think that's kind of inspirational to a lot of people to hear that type of story.
Yeah. On the cover, we see you with the American flag, proud American. And then I ordered this book already from the time that we agreed to do the interview. Can't wait to dive into it. But I knew we needed to talk because you got a lot of stuff coming up here with UFC 300. So I figured we'd promote that, Hendo's Fight Night, things like that. But, UFC 1992, it took me back to, I think that's when the Dream Team was in Barcelona. What was that Olympic experience like? It was your first Olympics. Was that basically the highlight of your combat sports career, or did somehow along the way everything you did in MMA just kind of surpass that? Because every wrestler growing up thinks about the Olympics.
I don't think I could trade either one for the other. I was thankful enough to be able to achieve my goals of going to the Olympics. I didn't win a medal, which was my ultimate goal, but and then transitioned into MMA and didn't think I was going to have that long of a career doing MMA, and ended up fighting for 20 years. So, I don't think I would trade one for the other. I couldn't tell you which one means the most. I mean, I guess if it came down to it, as patriotic as I am, I would have to probably choose the Olympics, just competing in, twice in Olympics, one in Barcelona and the other one was in Atlanta. And it was pretty special to have compete in your home country. So it was pretty special to me.
Did you ever see any of the Dream Team guys out and about? I know they took in some events. Did they happen to catch wrestling?
I don't know if I saw them out and about, but I saw them during opening ceremonies. I kind of ended up they weren't sitting with us in kind of in the holding area before we walk out. Every country kind of was in this stadium waiting to walk out with your team, and they must have been somewhere else. And when the U.S. team started walking, they kind of shuffled in, and I ended up kind of right next to them when they did that. And I looked next to me and had to look way up in the sky to see who was standing next to me because they were pretty tall. So.
For sure. That was,
And
I
I
think,
think a
Magic
bit of that is
Johnson's
in my book
return.
as well.
Very cool. I love that stuff, man. By the way, were you the original champ? I know Randy won heavyweight and light heavyweight titles before you, but he didn't do it simultaneously. You still had the welterweight title when you knocked out Vanderlei and won the middleweight title, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and then that was shortly after that is when UFC purchased Pride and then shut it down. So there wasn't much time to defend my belts at all.
What do you remember feeling the most euphoric, or what are you most proud of between your Strikeforce light heavyweight title, that first UFC tournament title, the King of Kings title, the Grand Prix, both of these, the Olympics? I mean, Jesus, like, is there one that kind of stands out?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that the King of Kings tournament was definitely the toughest challenge in one day. Having a 32-man unlimited weight class tournament, and me weighing about 200 pounds was, I didn't, honestly, I didn't expect to win. I just kind of entered the tournament trying to make a little more money to keep wrestling, and hopefully I did pretty well, and went in there and won my first 2 fights in the first event, and then came back for the finals, and it was 3 fights in a night. And that was the toughest night of fighting I had in my whole career, was those 3 fights, and I blew my knee out in the second fight against the Big Nog. Then had to fight, 25 minutes later against Babalu, and it was tough. It was mentally, I had to really challenge myself and get myself to go in there. And I know that when I was in the ring before the fight and they played the national anthem, that really pumped me up and got me going. That and thinking about the prize money, because it was pretty heavy on the towards the winter. It was almost like a winner take all tournament. So that motivated me as well.
Yeah, the old suitcase days. We remember. All right.
Hey, Dan, so there are a lot of moments in people's lives where they tell you, no matter how much I describe it, I just can't really put it into words. That's probably tough when it comes to writing a book, but can you maybe share with us one of those moments that no matter what, whether we read it or hear it from you, we just won't understand how much that moment meant to you?
I don't know. I mean, I've had quite a few of those type of moments, so I don't know if I could narrow it down to one, but yeah, I mean, making my first Olympic team, was obviously pretty special. I was 21 years old, went to the Olympics, 2 Olympics before that to watch and had it in my head. That was in the '84 Olympics in LA, and my dad took me to the Olympics, and I put it in my head that that's what I wanted to make the Olympic team and represent the U.S. in the Olympics. So when I finally did make the team, I mean, the words probably can't describe that feeling as well. And I think, and that was the first huge thing that I did as far as wrestling goes, way before I started even thinking about fighting. So yeah, probably that.
If you look at my background, you could see some of the biggest organizations in the world are represented here, and you fought in a lot of them, primarily UFC, Pride, and Strikeforce. Which one represented the best version of Dan Henderson?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, obviously, I did pretty well in Pride with having 2 belts when they ended, and then I felt like I did pretty good job in the UFC. The transition from the ring to the cage when I first got back into the UFC after Pride, was a little bit of a challenge. And not having the best performance my first couple fights back. Obviously it wasn't the best me. And then, I felt like I finished pretty strong in UFC and Strikeforce, then back to the UFC. I don't know. I think I've had great moments in all those organizations. Obviously not every fight was my best, but overall, I think in each one of those organizations, I had great fights and some maybe not so great fights.
What would you say is the biggest change in mixed martial arts since you left?
Well, it's every weekend now. Instead of kind of building up events for a month or a month and a half of not much else going on and everybody looking forward to one event, that they kind of get 1 or 2 events a week depending on what organization you watch. So it's a lot more prevalent now, and I don't know why. I mean, all the time I have people tell me the same exact thing, that they miss the old days of MMA, and maybe that's why they kind of can get behind people a little bit more, and it's not overwhelming with how many fighters there are now and how many fight events there are right now. But I hear that all the time, that a lot of the fans miss how it used to be. And I don't know if it's because the fighters are different or, I know that, some of us old school guys did things a little bit different and maybe a little bit, harder, tougher. I don't know what the right word is for that either, but I kind of miss some of those brawls out there, and you get them occasionally nowadays too. But I think it's a little bit different.
We saw that you've been kind of hitting the gym more this year. Is there any particular reason? It seemed like you kind of, I saw on social media, said, I'm getting back in there. I'm going to be in there pretty much every day. And it seems like you've kept your end of the bargain up. What?
I don't know about every day, but I'm doing my weightlifting circuit that I did, not exactly how I used to do it, but building up to that and just trying to get back in shape. I was getting a little chubby and started to look too much like a coach, and seeing pictures of my belly sticking out. So I figured that it was time to start getting back in shape and trim down a little bit. And I'm getting a little older, so it's nice to be healthier. And when doing that, I looking, kind of decided to have a little fun and get in there and spar with the guys as well to kind of help me get rid of my gut. So that's the primary reason for that.
Dan, you also have a fight night coming up on March 9th out at your gym in Temecula. So you've been doing this for a few years now. What's the biggest, sounds corny, but joy or pleasure you take from a fight night? Is it just like the fact that you set some new competitors into the sport and their journey's begun? Or is it just, hey, man, I just show up to see knockouts, like, or the lucrative side? I don't know. What drives you the most for these events?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just giving, and there's a lot of amateur fights out there, but giving these guys opportunity to get more experience and give them more opportunity to some of the guys that are either from my gym or kind of more local to have their friends and family be able to come and support them, and then I've also started doing a kids MMA event in conjunction with the fight night. I do a kids full card in the morning. I think we have 17 kid fights lined up for that morning. We start off, I think, at 11 o'clock, and we're done by 2, and then we set up and everybody comes back in, or for the adult fights are at, doors open at 4 p.m. So the biggest thing is just giving them experience, and it's, I love watching the kid fights as well. I mean, they're almost as exciting as the adults, and they're giving them a platform to kind of have a crowd behind them, and they're kind of in a bigger atmosphere than they normally have a chance to compete at. So it's been rewarding in that way. So it's fun to watch them.
Hendo's Fight Night 15, March 9th. Doors open at 4, fights at 6. So those are for the adults fighting. There'll be a DJ, vendors, great Mexican food. Been to a couple of these. It's a fun night out. For tickets, go to hendosports.com and you can follow Hendo's Fight Night, Dan Henderson, on Instagram at Dan Hendo. From there, you'll see the different links that lead to Dan Henderson's Athletic Fitness Center. And then fans, MMA fans, the week of UFC 300, Dan will be out at Barnes & Noble in Las Vegas, and this is on the 13th. So it's the day of UFC 13, a book signing Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Dan, what's 2191 North Rainbow Boulevard in Las Vegas. You can follow Dan on Twitter at Dan Hendo as we get closer to the event. Dan, what's your favorite interaction or most common interaction when you do see your fans out and about? What is it they like to bring up, or is it a pick? I've seen you throwing a few leg kicks along the way too.
Well, yeah, I think the thing that I hear the most, almost daily though, even in my hometown, if I go to the grocery store or whatever, if I just run into a fan, almost daily I hear, either thank you or my favorite knockout was Bisping, you against Bisping, or thank you for knocking him out. I hear that almost every day. So that's definitely the fan favorite for sure of things that I did in my career.
You've had some big ones. The Vanderlei one just shocked everyone at the Thomas and Mack in Las Vegas. And then a middleweight taking out one of the greatest heavyweights ever in Fedor. That was pretty nuts. I think that one was in Chicago. Who hit you the hardest, though? I mean, you've knocked out a lot of people, but who rattled your cage?
Well, I mean, I've had my bell rung a few times, but I would say both those guys hit pretty hard. Thankfully, Vanderlei, I definitely felt his power, and I fought him twice. Fedor, I don't think landed, kind of a clean shot to feel his full power, but the shots that he did land, I definitely felt that he does hit hard. Rampage hits fairly hard as well. I would say those 3 guys probably do hit the hardest. I don't know who actually hits the hardest, but but I've been rocked by other guys as well. It's just a matter of where the punch goes.
I saw you shake Vanderlei's hand when they announced he was going to go into the Hall of Fame. I've seen you do Quentin's podcast recently as well.
Yeah.
With Bisping, there's got to be a day where you guys can just take a picture and laugh it off, and it can be done, right? It seems like it's still tension there.
I mean, not on my side. I mean, I'm not. I don't have anything against him. He's not a type of guy that I'd want to hang out with. But I don't have anything against him. I've always respected him as a fighter, and I don't know if there is a beef or if he has one, but I think even though he did get a judge's decision and technically won the last fight we fought, it doesn't erase, I guess, what I did to him, and especially in his mind. So maybe he's holding on to that a little too much.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, you are in the wing of the fight. Well, I guess it's called the fight wing. You and Shogun, 2011, I believe, 2013. Great fight. But I think as a pioneer, I think we're overdue. I'm sure it's hard to answer the question, right? It's pretty consensus that you'll be going in one day, but when you do see some of these other legends going in, it's part of you like, hey, when are they going to give me a buzz?
Not really. I mean, everybody asks for that, but I never fought to one day be in the Hall of Fame. I fought to try to challenge myself and set goals and try to achieve them and be the best fighter out there in the world. And it's up to everybody else to feel if I did enough to be in the Hall of Fame. And honestly, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. And I don't really think about it hardly ever. Even if Vanderlei got inducted, I think he should be inducted. He's been a great ambassador of MMA for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not in any way throwing shade at the Axe Murder. He definitely deserves to go in. I looked it up just for shits and giggles. He did start about a year before you did in MMA, but you competed in the UFC about 6 months before he did. The accomplishments are very similar. He also got down, versus heavyweights like you did, competed at light heavyweight, middleweight, won Grand Prix like you did, won undisputed titles. Very, very similar. And you guys went 1-1 against each other, but there can't be a bigger slam dunk out there than Dan Henderson going into the Hall of Fame, and I'm not sure what's taking so long. But Goes and I don't make those decisions. And you seem pretty casual about it, but you need to be immortalized, my friend.
Yeah, I don't lose sleep over
it. All right. Well, listen, great catching up to you as always. Hopefully we can get to Hendo's fight night. It's right down the freeway from our parents' house. I'm in South America, so Goes is the most likely of the two to maybe get out there.
All right, well, sure. Let me know if you come. I'll get you a seat where you can get splattered on.
There you go. That and a taco. Don't forget to throw in a taco.
Yeah, we got a taco truck coming and a barbecue guy coming this time. So yeah, your pick.
Nice.
Sounds great. All right, my man. Thanks for the time as always on MMA Junkie Radio, and we'll probably see you pretty soon, not only in Temecula but in Vegas. I think that's going to be a great event for fans to come out and meet a legend out at Barnes & Noble on the 13th, right before you take in the fights. See you, Hendo. Take care.